Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have arrived, and by now at this point, I'm pretty much done with the games. Gotta say, they're really refreshing to me in comparison to past Pokemon titles like Sword and Shield. The open world aspect really allows you to take almost any kind of approach. Game experiences and mechanics aside though, what really surprised me were the starters. Today, I want to give you guys my thoughts on how I feel about the starters, from a design, in-game, competitive perspective, or any other details about what I like or dislike about them. Also for comp, it will specifically be singles this go around. But I can tell you guys right now, the news I'm about to tell you is gonna surprise you. Probably a lot. But I'll get into that surprise in just a bit. If you've been following my channel for years now, I think you'll be a bit shocked. Before we start though, you guys should head over to Mystic Umbreon Shorts, where we'll be having daily Scarlet and Violet content coming out, as well as daily Pokemon facts. After the best team goes up, I will actually be starting a brand new Scarlet and Violet series exclusively over there on Mystic Umbreon Shorts, that I think the majority of you guys will like. Also, if you like anime and fanfics, head over to Mystic Reads, where I'm currently reading Road to be a Pokemon Master Kanto Edition, an adventure with Ash and Serena going through Kanto together. If you like anime, I'm reading through the Yaju Sanin, a Naruto fanfic. I will leave the links for both these channels in the description below and the iCard above. With that though, I'm just gonna dive right in. So let's get started with Quaquaval. From the get-go, I never really disliked nor really loved Quaxly. We've already had a duck-like Pokemon, with the likes of Ducklet, and then of course it takes the swan route to Swanna. My initial thoughts were water and flying, but then as Quaxly evolved, the typing would end up being water and fighting. It's a dancing duck with very powerful legs, and that makes sense with the fighting type it has. After seeing it for a bit, I decided that I don't really like or dislike this evolution line. I'm honestly in the middle with this one. I will say I like its design more than Inteleon though, but not as much as past water starters in the franchise. I'd rank it somewhere in the middle for my personal ranking. I actually like the water fighting approach more than just having a water flying type duck. Hopping into Quaquaval's in-game perspective, I have to say I'm fairly impressed. With that strong physical attack stat, it can really put the dent on quite a few of the important battles. It brings the kick for your Team Star battles against Mela and Giacomo, as well as gym leaders such as Larry and Glaciado. It also helps out against some of the Elite Four. All things considered, the move pool looks pretty wide too. Do I think it's the best starter for an in-game playthrough? Well, you'll have to find that out when we do best team. It does bring the kicks though, and won't disappoint you. Going to competitive, it seems like it has quite a bit of diversity with the sets that can be run on it. Banded, Scarf, Swords Dance, or a Life Orb set seem to be pretty optimal ones. With its unique set of coverage, and thanks to Terrasteel Electric, it has checks for flying in waters. Or if you wanted to run Terrasteel Dark for Psychics, that can also be an option. If you're able to keep Quaquaval around, it seems to be a really solid late game cleaner. So overall, Quaquaval is a pretty neat starter, but nothing to make me want to use it several times. Moving on to our next starter, let's talk about Fuecoco. Fuecoco seems to be the one starter pretty much everyone agrees that the design is pretty solid, and I 100% agree with this wholeheartedly. When it comes to the fire starters, Pokemon rarely misses with design choices, unless you're Delphox. And this is definitely a case of where they didn't. It's interesting though, because Pokemon didn't take the Chinese Zodiac approach. I wonder if we'll see this cycle continue at some point, or could this be done period? Despite that, the entire evolution line looks solid. Both Fuecoco and Crocalor just look fun and goofy, so that was my initial thought in thinking they were gonna follow suit with its final evolution. But yeah, I was wrong. Skeledirge is one of the most badass designs of a Pokemon I have seen in quite a while. I was not expecting to see such a ferocious looking crocodile, and a ghost type at that. The Pokedex entry actually dives a bit more into Skeledirge's ghost type origin. Listen to this. The fiery bird changes shape when Skeledirge sings. Rumor has it that the bird was born when the fireball on Skeledirge's head gained a soul. I'm not really all that familiar about the bird that it's talking about because I actually haven't used it in-game yet, but I want to know more about it. I love when the Dex entries do this though, it's pretty cool. Another aspect that surprised me was that it's more of a special attacker than a physical one. You would think with such strong teeth and jaws, it would be a physical attacker, but that's actually not the case. 110 special attack is what it sports. But let's get a better idea of what it can do. Now, I've talked about how much I love Ceruledge. However, I believe Skeledirge has the edge on it. Skeledirge, I think, offers a bit more while fighting some of the bosses. Skeledirge has the move Torch Song, which will boost your special attack by 1 stage every time you use it. You'll gain access to this move directly after evolving from Quaquaval in the Skeledirge, and having that in-game is pretty freaking deadly. Skeledirge surprisingly also has quite a bit of bulk, which if you guys are Nuzlocke players out there, that can definitely help. You'll also be able to utilize your bulk to take hits a lot better than Scarlet and Armoroak can, which will be fairly useful to most players, especially once again for those of you playing Nuzlockes. It really brings the fire when taking on the games, especially in a few of these battles, most notably between Tulip and Airy. I'm excited to dive into the best team, because I wonder if Skeledirge actually is the best choice. Going to competitive, what I've said about it from the in-game point of view mostly still stands here, with its special attack, bulk, etc. With access to the heavy-duty boots, it becomes a strong defensive fire type with the ability to heal as well. The most viable set I see as of right now is Will-O-Wisp, Slack Off, Torch Song, and Hex. Skeledirge can burn, heal, and set up with Torch Song. Speaking of setup, by the way, Skeledirge can also ignore setup mons with Unaware, which is pretty important to fill the void Clefable left behind this gen. And lastly, I have to save the best for last. Now, I'm aware that I said I would be upset if they put Sprigatito's final evolution on 2 legs. And they did. This leaves the community pretty mixed, with some people loving the design and some people having second thoughts about it. Well, for me, personally, I'm one of the individuals who actually really likes the design a lot. With my past rants, and even recent rants, you would think I hate Meowscarada. That's not an entirely wrong opinion to guess, given my stance on past bipedal Pokemon. I'm sure you guys know which one I'm talking about. But after seeing it for the first time, I completely 180'd my opinion. And now I can say that Meowscarada is now my new favorite starter Pokemon, tied with Venusaur. Chikorita has been put to the number 2 spot, and Venusaur and Meowscarada are now at number 1. Ever since I was a kid, the Chikorita and Bulbasaur line have usually been neck and neck, but Meowscarada took the first place medal and tied with Venusaur. Venusaur is just too good. I can't put it any lower than number 1. I like them both equally, so they're gonna sit there tied. They took the Magician approach for Meowscarada, similarly to how they took Delphox's design concept. This time though, they went for a more darker look. And I have to say it works very well. There is one really important aspect that drew me into its design, and this was honestly kind of the deal breaker. That's the fact it looks very similar to Knights from the Sega universe. When I look at its design, I just see Knights and Riala. Despite me never playing these games, my friend told me that Meowscarada looks a lot like Riala. But I do remember Knights from Sonic Adventure 1 and the pinball level. That was always my favorite one as a kid. It also just has the dark presence to it that make it into a dark magician. And yes, that is a Yu-Gi-Oh reference, Dark Magic Attack. But yeah, its design is top notch and I surprisingly really love it. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on Meowscarada though. I know the community is very mixed. Let me know your thoughts down below. Going over it from the in-game perspective, what really makes Meowscarada's presence more dominant is definitely its dark typing. Having a dark type on your team is a pretty strong aspect when preparing to fight potential psychic and dark types, which thankfully this starter evolves into. There aren't really a lot of strong dark options in these games, without getting into too many spoilers. Meowscarada is pretty useful for a variety of quests in these games, such as Cloth, Great Tusk/Iron Treads, and the Tatsugiri Titan Paths, as well as gym leaders such as Kofu, Rhyme, and Tulip. Flower Trick also guaranteeing a crit every time makes it very powerful. For competitive, I'll just say this. Meowscarada's hidden ability is Protean. However, we do have the Protean nerf, changing type of the first move you use until switching out. It means Life Orb sets are pretty unviable, but you'll still be a huge offensive threat. With that though, it can still be a good choice band user, or even a spike setter with heavy duty boots. If we take a look to how it compares to a mon like Protean Greninja, its biggest issue is Meowscarada really only has a physical move pool, whereas Greninja can perform both on the physical and special side. So despite having the niche of outpacing Greninja, that may make it a bit less viable come Pokemon Home's update. Regardless, Protean is still a solid ability, and I still see Meowscarada still being a solid mon. I would say it's probably the best out of the Paldean starters, competitively. Well, that concludes my thoughts on the starters. Of course, these mons haven't seen the last of their spotlight just quite yet. Expect some best teams for them in the upcoming future. Anyway though, I'm gonna leave it here. How do you guys feel about the starters? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really curious to see. Thanks for watching the video and for coming through and enjoying Scarlet and Violet with me. We've got so much content coming surrounding Gen 9 through the end of the year and beyond, including the top 10 strongest Pokemon, the best team for the games, and much more. If you're interested in more Mystic content, check out my TikTok and Mystic Umbreon Shorts YouTube channel. When we get to 5,000 subs on the channel, we're gonna have a new series related to Scarlet and Violet that will be exclusive to there, so go subscribe. Also, if you're into fanfictions or Genshin Impact, check out Mystic Reads and Taivatchinary. I offer a ton of creative spoken word content over there, and I do a bunch of theories and lore videos surrounding Genshin Impact. So come join me over there at that float your boat. That's all for now. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time for more Scarlet and Violet content.